my
Well,
booby, my button on
hello,
my
we're
booby.
live.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Real Talk with Just for Girlfriends. We're so excited to be back here after launching our TV show on Can TV. And in fact, today we're discussing um, the education in today's times. And we talked about this. It aired yesterday. If you watched it on Can TV, this is going to be a deeper dive into those topics that we've already raised. So be prepared for your questions. We have a special guest who is well versed, has seen just about everything there is to see when it comes to educating kids. So he'll be here to answer your questions live. But, before we get into all that, we always have to have our girl chat. We almost started early, as a matter of fact. But let's introduce ourselves. I'm Michelle Skinner. I am a member of Just for Girlfriends, and I have been there. Hi, Maria. Thank you for joining. I've been a member almost 5 years now. I also serve on the board, and I manage all of Just for Girlfriends social media accounts. As you'll see scrolling across the bottom of the screen are our handles. Please join us. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Have a lot of fun over there. Robin, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Robin McFarland. I am the very first official Just for Girlfriends member. I feel like I haven't said that in a long time, so I needed to say
It's
that.
a claim to
Uh,
fame. Yep.
uh,
Absolutely.
I am also a part of the board and was just catching up on this topic from which is an extension of our Can TV show. So I am
Mhm.
excited to have Daryl back because it was great anyway, but just the laughter and the humor and what can be seen in some very challenging times I'm really excited
Right.
about.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, you laugh to keep from crying, they say, right?
A little
We
bit,
laugh
a
at
little bit.
that.
Yeah.
Angelique, please.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. And hey, Laverne from New Orleans. So glad that you are
Hey.
joining us. So my name is Angelique David. I am the founder and CEO of Just for Girlfriends. We are the mission of our organization is to help women embrace self-care and self-preservation because how many of you ladies out there feel like you are always doing everything for everyone? Yes.
Two
But
hands. Yeah. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and not enough for yourself. So that's where J for G comes in. What we do is we provide amazing, unique, different activities, events for you to come out and take off all of your hats. And I mean every single hat. And just remember those times when you could just think about yourself. And we help you do that. So you don't have to plan anything, you just show up. And then we also have a mighty sisterhood across the country. We do live events in the DMV area as well as the Chicagoland area. I see we have Kim Young from Milwaukee. We do have a member in Milwaukee. So please, please think about joining us just for girlfriends.com. We also have relationships with sponsors and discount partners. So, really trying to provide vetted resources for all our members. Our tagline is we're here to make your life a little bit easier. So, this blackdoctor.org, our Real Talk here and our Real Talk on Can TV is part of that, providing vetted resources to you. So, excited to have everybody and to get started because, like Robin said, we had a lot of fun when we talked about this before, and I can only imagine now that we can interact with the audience because we are not able to do that in the other platform. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know. I'm so excited because as you've heard, we initially raised this topic during our TV show, and we just left so much on the table, because we are on a certain schedule there. So we thought it would be great to bring it to you live, where you can actually have some of your questions answered. And we can dive more deeply into the subjects. Well, without further ado, I want to introduce our guest. Daryl Richmond is Dean of Students.
Robinson,
I'm sorry. Sorry,
He is
Daryl.
family, though. He is family.
He
his family.
is.
He's
I know.
family.
I am so sorry. Daryl Robinson. Yes, he is the dean of students. Now I'm scared to say it's school. The Auburn International Academy. Hope I didn't mess that up. But he serves as a liaison between teachers and students, and he's seen it all. Here to give us some great advice on how we can prepare our kids for life after high school, Mr. Robinson.
Hi,
Thank you.
Daryl.
Robinson. Okay, sorry.
Hello, ladies.
Daryl,
Hi.
don't pay
Nice
me
to see
mind.
you again. Nice to
Daryl-
see you.
Daryl, Michelle tried to make you a Richmond.
I had that in my notes. I'm so sorry. But you know why? Because Angelique and her husband's name is Richmond. I think that's where I got that from. I think I made that up. I'm sorry. Nobody told me that.
Look, he froze.
I think he's frozen. Yeah, I think he froze.
You
That
made him a
was
Richmond and he froze up.
sharp,
Oh, no.
startling
And you
news
know,
there.
Startling news.
Is he unfreeze there? We ready to jump into this?
Or let's see.
We could do some shout outs till he comes, right? So I'm thinking.
Right. Well, you know what I want to talk about?
Oh, what you want to talk about?
Girlfriends and
Yeah.
our innovative activities. What about what's coming up this weekend, y'all?
I know. I've been packing for a year. I'm ready. I'm ready.
And I have not started, but I will. We're going
I probably
glamping.
have enough in my luggage, Michelle, and I still forgot your jacket. But I have enough in my luggage for all of us. I believe.
I may be borrowing some stuff because I think I'm doing some ATV rides in the morning. It's gonna be a little chilly.
Yes, so
Well,
Montana. Go ahead. You want to tell us more about it,
I was going to say,
Angelique?
so let's tell everybody what we're doing because this is part of J4G. So Letha, Dee, Kimberly, Maria, get ready because we would love to have you
Laverne, yeah.
next year. Yes, Laverne, we'd love to have you next year. So we do an annual trip. And this year we are doing a luxury dude ranch. So we are going to Montana and everyone gets a home and they have a spa. We're going during James Beard weekend. So we'll have a lovely weekend of fabulous food and wines. And we have people doing ATV, shooting, hikes. I think someone's doing fly fishing. We have
Horseback
Really?
riding, right?
Yeah. So there's all kinds of interesting, unique. Again, we really try to do unique and engaging events for us to unwind. And I've looked at the pictures. It seems like Montana is a beautiful, beautiful place. I've never gone, so I'm
This is
excited.
my first
to go.
time there.
Yeah,
But
same
yeah.
here. I watch Yellowstone though, so I'm
Me
hoping
too. Ooh,
I
that
was.
show was good.
It's a great show, but I hope I went to a different dude ranch, and the guy who was guiding us on the horse was from Montana, and he was like, Yellowstone doesn't even do Montana justice. He said it is
Wow.
gorgeous.
Okay.
So I'm excited to. I'm really
I
excited to
know.
go.
I'm very excited. And you guys didn't even mention James Beard weekend. So not only are we gonna glamp, we're gonna eat well while we do it.
I'm gonna
So,
eat very well.
oh, I mean, I'm so excited. All the famous chefs is gonna be there that weekend. So
It's gonna be great.
well, our guest is having technical difficulties.
Well, why don't we get into some of the subject?
Let's go ahead and jump right into it because I mean we all have or have had school age children, so we can talk from. I know that's right. Oh, it's called Pause Up, right, Angelique?
Yes, pause up.
PAWS, Pause Up.
Yep.
Yeah, check it. I'm really excited about that. Well, you know, as parents, one of the most, if not the most important thing that we have to do is educate our children. And you know how challenging that can be depending on, you know, your school district, the age of your children, and so on. So that's why I think this subject is always relevant and so timely now since we're starting the school year that we get into it. So what I like to kick the conversation off with is how much do you or did you communicate with your teacher about specific things that are going on with your children? What about you, Angelique?
Yeah, well, this one was really interesting to me when we talked about this on CAN TV, because one of the things we heard Daryl say consistently was parents, if there's something going on with the child or if there's an issue, that parents should be talking to their teachers, the administrative staff, et cetera. And, you know, especially in the Black and Brown community, we say what goes on at home stays at home.
Yeah.
And you bet not talk about it
Outside
when
the
you
house.
go outside this house. That's right.
true.
That is
Bet
correct.
not talk about it. Right. Exactly.
not.
Right.
Right.
Do not let me hear it from anybody else.
Say that.
You saw
Say
Robin
that.
at the finger.
That's true, though. I mean, that's been the way we have run our households for centuries. So yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And there's reasons why we've ran our households like that, because people on the outside weren't understanding, and they weren't going to, bad things could happen. People
Yeah.
calling child services,
Take
etc.
kids, yeah.
for
And some
things.
people just weren't kind
Yeah.
if you did have something going on.
Oh no, not at all.
And so for him to say that, I think that's a shift, and that's a cultural shift to understand that the teachers and administrators are there to help you. The second part that was interesting to me was, I'm always afraid that if you tell teachers something, especially since they aren't always so favorable to Black or brown kids, that they're going to label them. They're going to put a stigma on them. All of a sudden, it's not going to be, oh, look, Daryl's back.
Hopefully I'm back.
Hopefully,
All right.
We said you got frozen when she made you a Richmond. It just shook you all up.
accident.
Well,
So
that makes
sorry.
sense because I'm a Robinson.
I got it now. Mr. Robinson at that. I'm totally clear
I
now.
noticed that. Yes.
So, Daryl, we were talking about when you were on CAN TV, and one of the things you really impressed upon us was the requirement or need for teachers and parents and administrators to all work together for the sake of the child. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because we were just saying how that's kind of counterintuitive for the Black and brown culture of don't tell nobody what happens outside of your house.
Well, first of all, it's one of the responsibility of the school to make sure the parents are comfortable with the school that they're sending their kids to, and know that they're part of the team. They can't just drop their kids off and think everything's going to be fine, because it's not, especially if you're dealing with brown and Black cultures. You got to know that they come from a very diverse background, and we have to make sure everybody is on the same page, that they have different problems, and we have to be able to address them in a very professional, but that home environment. You have to make sure everything's like a home environment. That way, the parents, the students, and everybody else know we're all working towards the greater good of the child.
Yep. And then you made a good point. You have to have that trust there. And I'm wondering, how do you build that if you currently don't have it?
It's hard nowadays, especially after the pandemic, because the social aspect of just people in general was gone for 2 years. So to bring that back, it's a little bit hard because basically schools were the first line of defense for kids who were going through different things and situations, because we would be the ones who would notice a change in a child, or they're not in a safe environment. So now that we're back in school, and most schools are, all the kids are back in. It's hard to make that approach, but you have to be in contact with parents. One of our requirements is that at the end of our dismissal, all teachers go outside, so that we can make sure if there's any kind of problems or something, they can communicate right then and there with our kids who are getting picked up. For those who are not getting picked up with their problems, we make sure that they make that call at the end of the day. So,
okay. So very responsive. Yes.
Right. We are on top of for any kind of situation or a change. Well, a kid can come in that morning. We're like, okay, what's going on? So we want to be on top of it. So like I said before, our school's lucky because we have 2 social workers in the building. So, which is a new thing, but we actually need more because their caseload is full just because of our population. But we have to make sure the teachers are being respectful and understand different things. Just to give you a scenario, today we had a teacher who was discussing the first African-American person on the Supreme Court. And the kids were like, why are we learning about this in English? This is not history. So I had to go in and do a whole musa for the class and say, look, he's trying to teach you something about culture. That's our culture. Although she doesn't look like us, doesn't mean she can't teach something in a positive light. And they were so upset about it and didn't even want to accept the fact that she was teaching history.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Our history. So afterwards, I said, you don't get this too often with someone who doesn't look like us, who's trying to teach you history.
Even want to, right.
And to understand that the youth of today do not care nothing about culture or history at all. Right. So they have to, they don't. I mean, it's the most bizarre thing, because then all of a sudden they want to go out here and protest something, but don't even know what they want to protest. So it was very interesting because it was all about making the connection and having the first, and what does a first mean, and that they didn't want to know about that. So, and I actually asked one of the females, did they know who was the vice president? And her response was, I don't know, I don't care.
Wow.
And so I said, so we're going to deal with the fact that you don't know something first.
Yes.
you can talk about the I don't care later, but afterwards she was like, "Why did you embarrass me in front of the class?" I said, "I didn't embarrass you. You embarrassed
You
yourself."
embarrass yourself.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My
Running
job-
off at the mouth, as we used to call it.
Run at the mouth. And I'm
Right.
one who just, I will nip it in the bud real quick and fast. So I said,
Mhm.
no, let's talk about the fact that you just don't know. Because that is what
You
my
just
job
don't
is
know.
to teach you.
Right.
That's what we do. We're an
Right.
environment of learning. So now that you don't care, that's for you to figure out. But at the end of the day, she came to me and said, I get it now. So
Okay.
Okay, good.
All right.
It's that
So
like-
do you think they know so much just because everything is in social media, or they can Google things at their fingertips? They think they
Yeah.
know it all, or do you think they're just not interested, like it's not applicable to them?
well, if you think back to when you were in middle school, which is probably, for me, it's a long time.
Me, it's just a few years ago.
Here,
I don't even remember middle school. It's been so
Here
long.
we go.
Right. So, yeah. So
I
if-
remember vividly.
Just kidding.
So you think about it and say we were knuckleheads at that age. So, but this is a hybrid of a hybrid. This is what I call the kids now. They're a hybrid of a hybrid, which means we have no idea what they are. We can't figure it out. I stopped trying to figure them out, but I just try to teach them from what I know. And so
Yeah.
I have to say that most of the student body here know where my heart is, so I can come at them like grandpa. They call me grandpa. And it's like, well, grandpa sometimes got to come straight with you. So, and
Yeah.
I just
They
tell them,
understand
like,
that.
I don't think because society has taught them that it's not important, because if it's not on a TikTok, it's not important.
Mm.
you
It's
gotta
a
keep-
totally different era, right?
It's totally 30 to a minute, and that's all they can take.
Well,
Mm.
it's funny.
Okay.
So one of the things that you really impressed upon us at Can TV that I took from your conversation is your authenticity with the students.
I
Is
love
that,
it.
like you just said, your grandpa, and that you do have the ability, like you said, you
Mhm.
started with the female student upset with you, and by the end she was like, okay.
I
And I
understand.
think that comes from you coming at it authentic, real, but with love and with care, and not putting them down, but saying, hey, I'm trying to help you. And
Right.
you know, your mom and your dad and your uncle, it wasn't always nice, but you knew they loved you. And at the end of the day, they were
Right.
trying to
That's
help
true.
you.
Right.
Well,
And I
and
deal
there's
with that with mine. They're always saying, why do I need, you know what I'm saying? You need to do better. You need to study this. Why do I even need to learn that?
Right.
And frankly, I don't know why, but that's what the curriculum is. And you need to get good.
you don't always know. Well, and also I like the fact that you can change the method. There's different ways of
Yes,
teaching
to reach
different
them.
people. And so to put it into one curriculum one way, which I can say from some of the school experience that I had my kids in, they did not flex to
Right.
the students always, and so
Right.
it wasn't impactful. So then that became an issue, so to
Right.
speak. They
Yeah.
don't listen. Well, it's not that they're unengaged. It's this you might not be doing it in a way that can
Right.
engage them, or that they can learn. So I like the fact that you can be authentic and that you know how to switch and move, which is, if I liken it to code switching, I mean, I will say black and
We're-
brown folks are the best at that. Like
Yes.
we can move in and out of different situations and rooms very quickly.
Fluidly. Right.
Very
Yeah.
fluidly, without hesitation. And so I like that. And I just don't know that everybody feels empowered to do that, or I don't know if there's restrictions in school districts
Well,
to be
I
able to
think
do
it
that.
depends on the leadership of the school, whether or not they allow that
Okay.
to happen. 'Cause it
Okay.
goes with that, because fortunately I have the leadership team here. We're very able to understand what population we're serving. So,
Yes.
and we make sure all the students know it doesn't make a difference what color you're in this building. We're going to treat everybody the same. We really don't care, as long as you're not a furrier, like we talked about last week.
A furry. I went home and
Get
Googled
back into
that.
that one now.
You
I
have to
went
draw
home
the
and Googled
line
that.
somewhere, right?
Yeah, we draw a line somewhere. So, but other than that, we're very open, we're very accepting, and all that kind of thing. So it's just we got to meet them where they're at. And
Yes.
some kids don't even know where they at. So that's the one thing.
Yes.
The self-discovery
right.
may be part of the process. So long as we're coming from that standpoint. And we have like 14 days of just professional development before school starts with
Wow.
teachers. So that's
Okay.
a lot. So
That
where
is
most
a
schools
lot,
only
more than I've
have-
ever heard. Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
usually most schools only have 3 days. So
Okay.
we really take the time to get
Yeah.
the new teachers involved, understanding
Okay.
what population you're going to be serving. Flat out tell them they're going to challenge you right off the bat. So, and part of that challenge is whether or not you're going to stay, because it's a big turnover. So once they know you're going to stay, they start opening up. because they're like, I'm not going to put interest in you if I don't think you're going to stay. So once they know that, they
That's
like,
human
okay.
nature. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that, you know, and they don't care about me. It's like, well, that may not look like the way you think it looked like. So we have to do that. So like I even told one teacher, it's like, okay, you're giving out too many snacks. Quit.
So she was was the teacher
That's just
bribing
her
with
personality.
snacks?
She has a
Oh,
bad.
it's her
You walk in the
personality.
room, it's just she has her classroom is like her home. She just has
Ooh.
candy. She's like,
I would
"Here,
love her.
I want
I'll
to
be in her
snack
class
on
all
right
the time.
now.
oh,
Right.
she has a beautiful classroom. I mean, it actually is a beautifully decorated classroom. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
very inviting, stuff like that. The kids love the classroom. The term right now is the kids always say, oh, you're extra. So they say she's extra. I'm like,
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
What that mean?
So what?
you
So why
bring
can't
up
she
a-
have? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Wait,
I
you
was going to
bring-
ask about the snacks.
No, we don't need to know about the snacks. No, but you bring up a great question. Is you talked about the turnover of teachers right now.
Right.
And we see it on the news that teachers are leaving the profession in a mass exodus.
Yes,
Are
they
you experiencing that in your school? And can you talk to what that looks like?
Not really a mad exodus at our particular school. It's just getting qualified teachers.
Okay.
Is the big thing. And, you know, we're all throughout the country, everybody's trying to find people to come in education. So they have, you know, you don't have to have a teacher certificate. You can get a sub license, all that type of thing. So that's where we're at with that. And someone's about to walk in my office right now. So
Hey, someone.
I'm actually online. I'm on a training. So, because we still have dismissal going on. So we have teachers all over the building. But that's the biggest thing is that, you know, teachers may be coming from different backgrounds. We have to get them ready for what they're about to deal with. So that's the biggest thing we have.
So when you say teachers don't need the same type of education, as I sit here as a parent, should I be worried that my kid is getting less of an education because now I've got Joe Schmo who has a piece of paper versus a teacher who has been fully trained? How do I?
Well, good question. And so to be honest with you, a school, if they're being forthcoming, they will tell you we're not going to hire just Joe Schmo. So what you want to do is hire teachers who have, first of all, the passion to work with kids. So, because everybody can be a teacher, flat out. It's just the passion part. You have to love students or youth, because if you don't have that, then don't go in the field whatsoever. Because today's youth, like I said, are a hybrid of a hybrid. They're different. So
don't do it. Yeah.
You don't do it if you're not ready for that. Most schools can teach you how to teach. We can't teach you how to care for another human being.
Right.
So
very good point.
If you went to school, for example, if you went to school for, let's say, to be a lawyer, you have the information as far as English and social studies. So you probably would go in that field. Or if you went to school probably for any kind of sciences, you could do math and science. So it just depends on what the background is for that particular teacher, because you have certain requirements basic when you go to college. So you can kind of switch things around. Or you have people who totally, like, for instance, my background is not in education. So I was in corporate development. So I was in training development background, but I could actually develop other people. So that's why I'm in a leadership role. So it all depends on the individual background, but I would say trust the school not to just hire a Joe Schmo. It's hard sometimes. And sometimes you may go through some teachers because, you know,
some of them look like be acting like a Joe Schmo.
Some of them are dressed up really well and be a Joe Schmo undercover. So I'm just gonna tell you, I mean, we had
Let's talk about that.
We had some people who were veterans, and we thought they would be a good, and they were not. So it was like, okay, you can't come in here with post-traumatic syndrome and going off on kids. So that type of thing. I'm just keeping it real because it was like 4 days. It was 4 days. I was like, oh no, you got to go. So they didn't. If they, I was like, oh, you're scaring the kids. You're scaring us. So you got to go.
You're scaring us.
Yeah,
not scaring everybody. Yeah.
So let's talk about what parents can do if you find your child is in a classroom where, you know, your child is just not able to pick up, you know, the material because of the teacher's style of teaching. What are some options? What can parents do to sort of help that?
Well, first of all, I would say they need to schedule a meeting with the teacher and figure out what. First of all, you got to start from the baseline. If the student does not have any IEP or a 504, depending on where they at, any kind of evaluation or something like that, then it's hard to even say anything because then you have to go through the process of figuring out if they have any kind of disabilities. So, and parents need to realize that's not like a quick fix. Like that's going to take anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks to figure that out because they have to be evaluated. So it's not a quick thing where we're going to do that. But once that's determined, then you can make adjustments because they would have like an individual learning plan that will help them. So that's the first step. Now, once that's established, then you move forward with if it's still not working or that kind of thing, because it may be just the child learning a different way. Sometimes you do have teachers teaching a different way, and we may have to adjust that kind of thing. So that's depends, but the parent needs to be in contact with the teacher. A lot of our parents take the kid's word as if it's coming straight from God, and they don't realize they may be having a little mischief, zesty kid on their hands because no one wants to know that their kid is bad. So, and they know
how they are at home.
Exactly, they do, but they don't want to admit it.
They say you're lying on their child.
Yes. Yeah. And my whole thing is we are too busy to come up with a story for that. So we just don't do that. So because we had a student last week tell his dad that he got pulled up out of a chair off the ground by his arm. And so I said, yeah, that didn't happen. Fortunately, we had cameras in the classroom, so we were able to back it up. But the father was believing it. So I said, no, that didn't quite happen. So I was like, and that teacher's not that big to pull up a kid all the way up by their arm and take him off the ground. I was like, really? Because I asked the kid, I was like, did he throw you? He was like, no. I said, how did he pull you up? He's like, just like how you came and got me and walked me out of class. I said, so you weren't off the ground. He was like, no. I said, okay, so how did the story change?
Yeah, by the time you got home. Yeah.
They were aggressive, right?
Well, it was because he didn't want to get in trouble, so he came up with another part of the story. Yeah. So I told the parent what happened. And so the weekend, the story changed. I was like, oh, okay. All right, so now you got thrown around in the classroom. So that's okay.
So outside of like report card pickup, a curriculum day or something like that, are there parent groups that or parent meetings that are going on throughout the year to talk about stuff like this, about being a part of that community and trusting and that sort of building relationships like that?
Now, if you're talking to suburban parents, that would work great, and that would be more active parents.
Okay.
Inner city, so. Example, we had a lot of our 7th and 8th grade kids who were very, very, very zesty. And we had a whole parent meeting just for 7th and 8th grade. And it was over 100 and something kids. We had about 5 parents show up for the meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So we had to take the approach, okay, we're going to do what we got to do. We're going to send out a letter, post it on our social media and all that kind of stuff, the changes we're going to make. So after that, we start getting parents complaining about stuff. And the phone calls come to me, which I don't mind. I love to have the phone calls because I said, well, where were you at on this date? Because we sent this notification out. So because we wanted input from parents, but since parents didn't show up, we had to go forward without the parents' suggestions. So, and they just got quiet because we're very proactive about getting the parents involved. If you don't show up to the table, we're going to move ahead because we have to do what we have to do. So that's where we're at. So most schools are trying their best to get a hold of parents, keeping parents abreast. The parents have to do their part. They have to be. I mean, that's where we're at. I mean, education is very, very hard. Coming up, we didn't have cell phones. So you can call a parent in the afternoon or in an evening, get a hold of them. We're texting parents and may get them to respond. So parents may get tired of the school, and so they block the school.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Yeah. So, and I remember hearing about one teacher, and I think it was just one, maybe it was multiple, prior to school, like making visits to their students' homes to make sure they were in front of parents and that they understood, what the school year was going to look like. Is that even reasonable to do? Is that something you all suggest, or people, or can teachers just be creative that way if they like?
And I also would say, what are our expectations of teachers? Because as we know, teachers aren't paid as what they should be paid. And now you're asking them to go to 30 homes.
Well, I mean, it's not asking if they want to be creative and do that, because I do think a big part of education, they've never been paid what they should be paid. It's some people see it as their ministry. Some people see it as passionate, so passionate that they want to do that. So I had heard several years ago that a woman did this, and it made that time that she put in.
The hybrid child.
It might have been. It was just, but they were creative enough, or they had so much passion for the role that's what
you
they
had to
did.
do something, right?
And they found that it was helpful because they weren't getting the response, like you said, the calling meetings. People weren't coming, right?
Well, we're reaching out because, you used to have the Donuts for Dads, the Muffin for Moms type programs,
Yeah.
which do work. We reach out just to dads and try to get dads to come in on certain days and call it Father Day. So they can
Okay.
come in. Our Grandparents Day. Grandparents are a good resource for schools
Yeah.
because usually they're the ones who can really put that emphasis on learning. Because again, I'm gonna keep saying hybrids of hybrids. So we have to go back 2 generations just to get it back to normal because
Yeah.
we have young parents. So
Yeah.
we
Some
have to
of them.
embrace that. So you may have a 15-year-old kid and the parent's only 32. So, you have a lot of that. So it's
Yeah.
just a different environment. COVID messed everybody up one way or the other. Either you caught it or you getting the ramifications of someone around you or just society having it. We have to talk to parents when we were online, like, can you put clothes on because your kid is online and we can see you in the background. So can you please put clothes on? So
I heard of that.
that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
that is real. I mean, some of the stuff that happens is real. If you have never watched Abbott Elementary, we
Love
Love
that,
it.
they are taking it right from schools. That stuff really does happen.
Oh
So
my
Yeah.
goodness.
that's we laugh at it because we're like, oh, that just happened to us. So, but that type
Yeah.
of stuff it's different, but you got to find the laughter in it because you would go kind of crazy because the
Yeah.
kids
Yeah,
push you.
yeah. I was telling my kids, I grew up in a school that was very much like Abbott Elementary, and first of all, they didn't believe me, but because they thought it's a show, it's not. That couldn't be true that you didn't have a book that was less than 2 years old, and I
Right.
was like, we were sharing,
Oh,
copying books, like
absolutely.
I had no idea. But it was the teachers that I didn't know how I was a kid, right? I didn't know how much they made, but it was the teachers that cared a little bit more,
Yeah.
that thought to ask, right? You had those strict ones, and I got in trouble with them, but the ones who took the time out to say, "This is a kid," right? I really don't know because we were in the time where you couldn't say stuff in the house
Right.
about outside of your house,
Mhm.
that they just cared about humans, which I think,
Right.
It
man,
goes
that's
a long
something.
way.
Yeah,
Right.
that's hard, and that's hard to gauge when you're looking for new people to come in, right?
Well, and it goes back to parents just engaging with the teacher. Appreciate someone is trying to teach your kid for 7 hours a day. So
Yeah.
you're leaving them
A
in
long
that
time.
control environment. It's
Yeah.
like, you do have some bad apples in the bunch, just like in any profession. But for the most part, everybody is doing this because they want to be involved in someone's child's life. So you
Right.
love it when you hear a success story or something like that. You just like, wow, I had a part to play in that. So, we just recently, I had a graduate who's been gone like 5 years, starting her own nonprofit and want to give back.
Oh, nice.
So
Oh,
I love that.
nice.
I picked you
Well, you
because
know,
that type of stuff. So those are the stories that really don't get publicized, but those are the
Right.
things that make you feel warm and fuzzy in the inside.
Yeah,
Mhm.
my mom, she taught English in high school over 30 years. And I used to love to come because she taught in the city. I used to love to come just sit in her classroom. But I tell you, her students would come and pick me up, take me roller skating and all, this all the things that they did, I'm saying is pretty unusual. And even now to this day, they're grown and they will write me such notes like, how was your mom? She made such a difference, blah, blah, blah. So you're right. When it's your passion, it really
Yeah.
does show up differently. And of
Mhm.
course, she
Really do.
made
I
And
would
it,
Yeah.
say
trying to
I
get the
am.
young teachers involved that's the one thing because we're trying to get the young teachers to understand that it's going to take time for you to grow into the profession. So you're just new, so you're going to be green, but we can get you there if you're willing to learn. So, for example, we're taking our high school students. They're going to a haunted house, which it's a big deal. We have a really big haunted house in the area where there's 5 different haunted houses. So we're leaving like 7 o'clock. We get there and we're going to come back to school around midnight. And
No.
high school teachers go because that's a good way to build that relationship with your students because they're going to be scared, you're going to be scared, but you're going through the haunted house together. So it's kind of
That's
like
so
that.
much fun, right?
Yeah.
And we've done it like a couple years, and it like the kids come back, and the teachers that go have so much more respect than the ones who don't go.
Ah, yeah.
Because
When teachers show up to sporting events, and it's like they were like, "Whoa!" They come back. So I saw you in the stands. Those type of things make an impact on that child's life because you may show up and the parents don't. So they need that type of support no matter what. Because it's like,
I love
oh
that.
yeah, I took the time out of my life to come spend it just to support you, and they appreciate it.
And that's back to meeting them where they are,
Yep.
right? And they're
Right.
kids. I think that's because some of the behavior
They act
doesn't
much older,
seem
right?
kid-like, right? Or what we're
Right.
used to, that
Oh,
we
they're not
can
kid like at
lose,
all. They're
right?
not
And
kid.
so we can lose sight that we're talking about 17 and below,
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yes.
And
yeah.
they are
Yeah.
young.
They're
Yeah.
babies. Yeah.
Yeah.
They are. They are. They're very young. They think they know the world, but they don't. So, and sometimes they step out of the child's lane and try to step into the adult lane.
Right.
Actually, they live in the adult lane. I would have to say that they actually live in
Okay.
the adult lane, and that's part of the pandemic. I mean, a lot of our kids actually they had their work permits. They were the ones working when the parents weren't. So,
Wow. Yeah.
Mm,
and they
I
took
didn't
on
think
that
about
whole
that.
responsibility of they're the breadwinner. So,
Yeah.
and that was a big
A
thing.
lot
It's
of
like,
times.
okay, I'm telling the kids like, no, we could take your work permit because you're supposed to be at school. So that type of thing.
Okay.
Right.
So it's
Right.
totally a different environment. So it's hard for students, it's hard for educators, hard for parents. So everybody just got to take a step back. That's what I had to tell a teacher today. Musa, just bring it back. It's okay. Breathe.
Right.
Okay. So, but that's
Yeah.
one thing.
You mentioned the pandemic a couple of times. My light goes off here sometimes. You mentioned the pandemic a couple of times and the changes that happen. We keep hearing that kids are maybe one grade level behind. Are you
Mhm.
finding that? And if you are, what can parents do to get them back to where they should be outside of just relying on the school to do that?
Well, okay. So in general, kids are like 1.5 to 2 years behind, to be honest, because here in where I'm at, we shut down everything in March. So we finished out the
Okay.
year pretty much didn't even know what we were going to do yet. And then so we had
Mhm.
2.5 months of just nothing for kids. We were giving out packets and stuff like that because we didn't have the infrastructure to go straight online.
Yeah. It was so
Then-
set. Right.
so they didn't finish a year. They didn't finish that year. So it's kind of like, okay, they're already didn't finish the year. So they're already slightly behind. Then you had a whole nother year where we offered online, a hybrid, and then in-house. So we had all that. The kids who were online and didn't show up, they're way behind. So, and
So if
because
they did only online, you're saying?
most kids who were totally online are behind
Okay.
unless
Mhm.
they had the support of parents right there with them. If they didn't have that support system,
Yeah.
they're behind. So, so you already right there is 1.5 years behind. So then we're kind of moving forward. The problem with everything is that from big picture, education itself should have just stopped and picked up when it was ready to pick up from whatever grade level they left off at. So,
Mhm.
and that would have been the most honest and fair thing to do to society, because now we have babies who have graduated who were not ready to graduate. So they're not
Yeah.
ready for the workforce. They're not ready for college. So you have a lot of colleges saying the kids are still, when they enter college, they're a year behind. And so they're taking 99 courses and they're paying for it.
Oh God.
So that's a disservice. So that means they're paying more money
Yes.
for college. And then before they even get to a 100 class, it's behind. So that all is a mess. So, and people don't want to talk about it, but that's the real deal, that every single kid, unless they were ahead before everything shut down, are behind. If they were ahead before that, they're probably right on course.
Okay.
Everything's been dummied down. So
Are there websites or resources that parents can do to sort of bring their child back up, though?
There, depending on what grade, it's a lot of resources for elementary. When you get to middle school, high school, it's not as many resources because
I see.
the primary ages is where you really learn everything out. Other than that, one of the biggest things is to really teach your kids or emphasize reading. There are a lot of math courses they can take online. YouTube has a lot of self-help in math with a lot of tutorials. So that's one good thing. They can go, those are all free. You can get on YouTube and just follow different people,
Right.
links. Those are the best things to do as far as that, but you have to be engaged also as a parent. You can't. So this year, when our kids came back, we went back to books and paper because
Oh, okay.
we're trying to pull most of our kids offline a little bit because some of our kids don't know how to write. So because that type of thing, it's weird because we were doing an advertisement and it was like, why y'all guys have a pencil? It was like, because the kids don't have a pencil. So they're used to being on a computer. You don't need a pencil. So so we brought it back to like, let's get back to books. Open a book, fill a book.
Right.
And that made a big
Funny
difference.
that you say that. I was looking at my son and my daughter both. They journal, They have to keep this journal. They journal. And I was looking at my son's, and he had so many abbreviations that they use in text. And I was like, this isn't appropriate for, even though it's not something that you turn in. I was like, you have to write in full sentences, write, things out.
They don't want to do that.
No.
I would add
that's
and a lot of
that's extra.
A lot of the kids don't know how to read cursive or write in cursive.
Well, they don't even teach cursive anymore.
No, that's out. That's been out for a while too, right?
That's been out. So that's the one thing. It's like a lot of things that basic stuff we may have had, they don't have. So and
my kids' school teaches cursive still, and my kids know, but it's not taught very often. I mean, they do it a little bit, and then you've got to keep it up at school. So one of the things that I've done that just want to share for all of our viewers to try to make sure that my kids stay ahead, and obviously it takes resources, but we hired a tutor to keep them ahead of class. There's things like Kumon, there's things like iLevel, there are online reading programs, there are different, if you Google, there are different universities that will hold classes that kids can take to keep them ahead or above. So during the pandemic and after, to make sure that my kids stayed on par, we really kind of poured into them all of these extra resources. We went to the chalkboard school and got every resource for the teachers that teachers used. So I would say get workbooks. Workbooks help a lot, but you have to make sure they do them, and you've got to check them.
And that's also, you have to commit to the financial part of that, because most of them you have to pay. So that's the biggest thing. Now, I would say recommend most parents to check out their local churches, their libraries. They usually have resources that are free that they can go to. Now, our particular school, we have 2 tutoring sessions. We have one in fall and then one in early spring, just to keep them up. And we try to emphasize that in this after school. It's actually additional 90 to 2 hours of time that they can have on the subject that they're weak in. So we do that type of thing.
Right.
So a lot of schools do offer extra tutoring. I mean, you just have to be a parent that's engaged and know your child. So that's the biggest thing.
Mr. Robinson, someone asked, if they don't teach cursive, how do they learn to sign things?
They don't know how to sign nothing.
But if everything is electronic, nobody's signing anything anyway.
That is true. You get to use electronic signatures as well.
But you still do a signature on the electronic.
But you can just do whatever. You can just. It doesn't have to look like anything. It doesn't have to look like your name.
Most of our kids just write their name. They just print their name and think that's their signature.
Okay.
They don't know, so you have to teach them.
They just don't know, right? They just don't know. I would also add to that list some community centers, because I was also just thinking monetarily. I also knew some teachers that were out in YouTube going through the books, offering curriculums and sending out to say their network, saying, hey, I teach English. I'm willing to have some office hours or something if your kid wants to come. And I think there's a lot of things like that, but like you said, the parent has to be engaged or help with that, or the student even, because they are online, but they're not looking for those things, because they're just not looking for that.
In any kind of sport, make sure that they coach know where they are standing academically, because the coaches will also, what I have found, coaches are on top of it because they want them to have smart athletes. So
nowadays
they will give you the resources where to go to. So those are a lot, because we have a lot of kids who want to play sports. We're like, you're not academically sound. So the coach was like, no, you need to do this, and what they'll have is, like, before they have practice, they'll have round table study halls. So they'll have to do studying before they actually practice.
That's a lot like college. So that's great.
So you just gotta ask the school.
Here's something that's occurring to me as we have this conversation that now I'm even more concerned about, is what we're talking about now seems to have a lot of socioeconomic impacts with those who could provide resources and those who could not. And so did the pandemic stretch that out even more? And are we going to have did it widen that gap, where we're now going to have a next generation of a broader socioeconomic difference, because we had some kids who are now on, I'm not sure what track, and then other kids that are still there ready to go to college. Is this worse now?
Yes, it is. It's actually scary.
To put it simply, yes.
I'm going to keep it real. So we're looking at, it's probably going to take about 10 years to get through this cycle.
I heard about that. I read something about
Yeah, it's
that,
going to take
about
about
it's
10
going to
years
take 10
10
years to get
years.
everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
because you have to start with the babies. So, and unfortunately, because if you look at it, you have 10 years, that's like talking about third grade, maybe second grade. They already have enough of education in them systems where it's hard to go back. So you got to take from kindergarten and start fresh. They have new math, and it's kind of like new math to me. I'm looking at it just like, wait a minute. I had teachers. I'm like, that's not how I learned math when I was in school. So I
Yeah.
can't even help you with that because I'm like, I wouldn't go through 20 steps to get to the same answer. I know the answer.
It's so true.
So,
I don't know none about that new math.
right. And people are like, what you mean new math? It really is a different
It
technique.
is new.
It's a different
I've
technique.
sent my kids to school with wrong answers plenty of times. They come back, this is not the right answer. And one time I had to call the teacher, like, you're going to explain this to me because I love math. You got to tell me how is this wrong. You know what I mean?
You said, I know that was the right answer.
And it's not that it's not that it's wrong. It's just done different.
The wrong process.
Mhm.
That's what it was.
They want you to really work through the problem. And they
She helped me understand that.
Right. They want that whole.
You know what I did learn though about that is if you learn this new way of doing it, they can do math in any situation without having to write anything down. That's
Exactly.
what it's more mental math.
Yeah. They're doing mental math and they're really making
like, okay, it makes sense after I had to.
We were taught quick.
And learn it. Yeah.
We were taught just to get to the answer.
Right.
Yes.
They're going
not the process.
It's so much faster.
Right.
They're teaching critical thinking more and that sort of thing. Yeah.
They can do it without writing anything down because it's so many steps, so many baby steps.
Yeah. And that's so it's like, okay, what do we do with that? But so we just navigate through it.
So when you talked about the 10-year plan, is there a plan that schools are actually discussing and preparing to get these kids, back on track? Is a part of this 10-year plan, or is that just a known theory out there that people are just talking about?
I think that's how long it's going to take to get back to.
That's how long it's going to take to get back to we don't even know what the normal is anymore because it's a new normal.
Okay. It's a new normal.
Yeah. I have to say, to be honest, no one's really thinking about the 10-year plan yet.
Okay.
And the reason why is because really most schools when everybody came back last year, everybody thought they were going to pick back up to where we left off. Kids were totally different. So it threw everybody like, whoa, what's going on with these kids? And so this year it's the same thing, but it's like, okay, we kind of know what we're getting into. But then again, hybrid of a hybrid, you don't know what you're dealing with because they've been spliced and whatever. And we're like, oh, this is a whole nother kid. It takes a while for just education itself to understand what we're dealing with, to be honest.
Okay.
So
all right.
That's why I'm saying we're happy just to get through a month as far as plan.
Okay.
Because
and that's
plan, but
talk about coming back different. That's not just unique to schools. That was workforce as well. Workers came back different workers. And we talk about the workers that, the hybrid models. And recently you talk about what mental health. I mean, mental health is the number one thing that now companies are talking about is how's the health of our workers. So the pandemic really did do a number on and if it did a number on adults, then it obviously did a number on kids.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's the biggest thing is to take a step back and realize that it's not the same. It's
just not the same.
It used to be yesterday. It's going to be totally different. And we have to just take our time and say, okay, how are we going to deal with it? And right now, we don't know yet. There's no answer to it yet. I'm just being honest. We don't have an answer. So
because in my mind, I just need to understand a little bit better about different. So if Robin was in 5th grade, that's just me. I'm in 5th grade, and then I come back 6 months hybrid. Let's say, what is my difference? I was good and engaged before, and I come back after sitting in the house in the pandemic for 6 months. What's the difference in me other than I'm behind in probably just the learning part, which just about every kid was.
Well, let's look at it realistically. If we stopped and you were in the 5th grade and you went through the whole pandemic, it's 2 years. So you're in the 7th grade. So you have the whole thing of a 7th grader is starting to go through whatever life cycle they go through, male or female, their body's changing. That's the number one issue because you're dealing with a 7th grader, and it had been proven they literally lose their mind when they're in the 7th grade. And that's just 100% the truth. They lose their mind. So you have that. You have the fact that they're probably behind academically. They are behind socially. All that rolled up into a 7th grader.
Wow. Major attitude, right?
Well, you have all of that going on in their little body, and they're trying to figure out their body. Plus they're trying to be social or not social, and they don't care about academics because they haven't had to do academics for the past 2 years because everything was online. And even though you were supposed to be online, you weren't online. So, and you got moved ahead. So you go from 5th grade, now you're in 7th grade. That's hard to deal with from a standpoint of a student stepping into that, and for a teacher learning a student, because it's a lot going on with the student. And it's like, whoa, and you have, let's say you have 25 of those in your classroom. That's a lot.
Right.
That's a lot, especially if you're an urban school. So you may have kids walking in your classroom, 7th or 8th grade, and they may have been in trouble because the statistics are real about far as the age of kids committing crimes have dropped so low that you may have kids in your building that may have done something. You're like, whoa, what do I do with that part too? Because they weren't social in a positive
Yeah. And I didn't even think about the kids that were, let's say, 7th grade, and then they hop right into high school.
That's a whole
It
nother
just
bite.
didn't even, yeah.
Right.
So
Okay.
think
There's
about it.
other emotional things that didn't get to happen
It
naturally
would
too.
happen.
That
Right.
normal
You had
growth.
kids who were in the 11th grade, didn't go to prom, didn't go through the normal high school events, and now they're in college. They're still acting like high school students.
Yeah.
So, and didn't get to go through prom, homecoming, all those things you went through for high school. It all disappeared for 2 years. So that's a big thing. They didn't learn how to just grow and be social.
That
They're
is
just-
I think
huge.
just living with the fear that somebody could get sick and die. I think, mentally that affected soon. I know it affected my own kids, much more
Yeah.
clingy and,
Yeah.
just had a lot more issues that they didn't normally have, with their personality.
Right.
I
And
think
just
you
all
add
of
on
that
top of
influence.
that, I know we touched on this in Can TV a bit, but you add on top of this the amount of crime that you've seen in school violence, whether it is the mass shootings. And I mean, that even in since the pandemic, we've seen more of that than we saw before the pandemic. Daryl, just something like active shooter, we always had fire drills.
Tornado
We had
drills.
tornado drills.
Right.
We
Yeah.
never had active shooter drill. And that's something else that the kids have to deal with. Daryl, can you speak to that?
Well, okay, so we still do our fire drills and our tornado drills. Tornado drills are quite different because kids don't want to sit and they were like, oh, I'm not putting my butt in the air. And it's like, oh, if it saves your life, you're going to do what you got to do. So we have that thing. When we do the active shooter drill, afterwards, we have to have a conversation afterwards to let them know that was just a drill. In the state of Ohio, just a couple weeks ago, we had 8 fake threats all on the same day throughout the state. 8.
Wow.
And it's been popping up a lot throughout the country where they're doing all these fake call-ins saying this kind of stuff. And when they played the 911 call, it sounded real. They was like, the person's on the 2nd floor, they're in this room. Very real. So it threw a lot of people off, parents running out their jobs and going to school. So we have to make sure when we're doing that kind of drill that we know we got to talk to them afterwards, because it will throw people in hysterics quick and fast just to go through the drill. So,
I know.
And so when schools say they don't like to do the drills, it's because you have to do something afterwards, and it can mess your whole environment up. The whole culture can change in 30 minutes just because you're doing a drill of that sort. So, but you have to do stuff so kids will know. We practice the whole thing of, if someone walks in the classroom, we want everybody to throw everything at them. Throw the desk, throw books, do everything. Throw your book bag, do everything. Flipping the lights, you want to just do that. But it's a lot to be trying to teach kids how to do that. And that's something we didn't have to do that. We didn't have to do that whole thing, but
No, it's scary.
it's a different thing. So it's about
My daughter talked about how terrified she was. She knew it was a drill, but they had to go hide in the corner, and people came around and tried to get in the door. She was terrified, even at home.
Yeah, we do a real,
terrifying.
like, we making sure it's real. So that type of thing, and we have the police come through and all that kind of stuff. So it's a lot, but it's
a lot to deal with.
Protect our kids, because
Absolutely. It's necessary. Unfortunately, it's necessary.
Yes, and
Save
people
lives.
do
It's
it
so
themselves.
sad.
Yeah, some parents are a little hot-headed, and they, I have to say, we don't really have the student body where we're really necessarily concerned about a student doing something, but it may be a parent who may do something. So, or their kid may have had a situation and they're mad about something like that. We just had a parent who was upset because one of her kids saw the other kid in gym playing volleyball, but she thought they were beating her up. They're playing volleyball. So
Right.
and they were trying to catch the ball, so they all kind of failed. Thought it was. I'm like, okay. So we have that type of thing because everybody's on edge about stuff like that. So we had to
Right.
diffuse that situation. So it's
Yeah.
understandable. It's like if you just take a breath. That's all we need to just take a breath. So
Mhm.
and most times when you're doing that, you have to make sure you're doing it the right way. So and that's the one thing. But you have to go through all those different drills.
Yeah.
It's not just fire
Extra
drill.
work.
Not,
Yeah.
you have to do the active shooter, and that's different. That's different.
Yeah.
What do you think about teachers carrying guns? Remember
I'm against it.
that in Texas, I think that's already approved. They can have guns in the classroom.
We already have enough guns thrown throughout this country. We need no one else to be carrying guns. I'm totally against it. I don't understand why it would be in an education environment. It's funny because some schools we have security guards and they're armed. That's enough. We do not need a teacher with a gun on them teaching. So 'cause
Right.
you have a scenario where a kid can grab the gun off of them. The teacher can have a real bad day and lose it themselves. You never know. So I don't think we need to put educators in that arena. So
Right.
once they're out off the school property, they can do what they want. But in the building, I don't think it's necessary to have a teacher armed.
Right.
You said you had your former teacher that was ex PTSD. You
Yes.
didn't want him to have a
No. You definitely do not want that. Grab that gun real quick and say, "Now, who you don't want."
Yeah. No.
And it's a lot because you have kids who really try you. And if you have a kid trying you and you're armed and you're not quite sane, so, and they don't really require, it's ridiculous how you can go get a gun and don't have that much training. So
Right.
for that.
I was thinking they would be in
And
a
we learned
situation
that.
and
Yeah.
the person to take the gun from them. I mean, it just make it worse.
I'm thinking more the bad day. I mean,
Yeah.
based on what you were saying about how the children act, the
It's stressful.
disrespect,
Right. Yeah.
how they come at you.
Right.
Yeah, a
Well,
gun
it can
does not
even
seem like a good idea.
No, I mean, you can even have a teacher with a gun and they can just pat the gun like, "Oh, you don't want none of this." That's sending a bad message.
That's
That
horrible.
is sending that's terrible. That's
No,
It's
yeah.
supposed to
Yeah.
be for the active shooters, not for
Right.
against your own
As a-
students.
right, as a
Then you
parent,
have them go home, tell their parent, and then their parent said, "I'm gonna match your gun."
I was just saying, as a
You want a
parent,
bigger one.
Yeah.
parent, that
What kind of
would-
gun did he have? Oh, okay.
Right.
Let me get my bigger one.
Exactly.
'Cause I just come from my environment where it's urban, so you don't want to match that type of energy. So
No.
Gotta
No, you
diffuse
don't.
it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
yeah, 'cause I mean, statistically, most of the shootings are in suburban type environments, and they have statistics saying most shooters are going to be between this age and this age, and they're mostly likely going to be Caucasian. I don't think we need to say that's going to be always the case. So I just don't want to put anything out there where it could possibly happen in my school. So
Right.
I want to get home every day. So
Yeah.
Well, it's getting close to the hour. I mean, you see how fast that went by?
I know.
Yes.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, you're such a wealth of information. We'll
Yes.
likely have you back on, talk about
Yes.
education part 2. Because I wanted to get into the affluent school districts versus those with lesser, resources. And
Yeah.
every time you see something on the ballot, can people trust that that's really needed? The conversation can go on and on and on. So
Well, just to close out, I would say make sure all the parents who are listening be an active parent. We're open environments, so we have where parents can come in and sit on a class as long as tests going on in the room. We have no problem with letting a parent come sit in the classroom to observe. That actually helps. We love when grandparents come sit in the class because it makes it more of a family environment for our students. And they may not have that grandparent or anything like that. So we keep it where it is, kind of controlled. We don't have like individual parents just running into a class and talking to all the kids. No, we don't do that. But we want to make sure parents are invited in the building. Make sure we're not hiding anything. So that's the one thing.
Right.
Schools are not hiding from the parents. So a lot of parents think, no, just be open with the school and just say, can I come visit? Most of the time they'll say yes. Some schools say no. And, get that kind of thing. Get that all support from the parent.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, bless you, Daryl. This
Yes.
is
Thank you,
you
thank
are the hero here and all the educators out there. So thank you,
Yes.
really.
I'm just one of many.
Yeah.
Yes.
And everyone out there listening, please like and share this video with those who may be interested in educating the youth. If you have additional questions, put them in the chat. Daryl, I'm sure will be happy to visit the chat, as will we. We can answer your questions offline as well. We so appreciate you tuning in. We'll be back next month. You never know. We may show one of our shows from CAN TV, or we may be live like we are today. It'll be a surprise once a month here on blackdoctor.org Facebook Live. You'll see our website scrolling across the bottom. Visit us. All the ladies out there, consider becoming a member of Just for Girlfriends. I tell you, you will not regret it. And the men, it's a gift that gives all year long. You'll be very much appreciated for gifting a membership to those in your life that could use it. Our social media handles are scrolling across the bottom. Please like our Facebook page. Follow us on Instagram for more of this and a lot of fun as well. Anyway, we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for
Bye.
having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.